Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Real quick, I want to give a shout out to my man Minaj. He's joined my Patreon. He's helping support the show, and I'm helping him level up his life. Do you want me to give you a shout out at the beginning of my show? Join my Patreon today. Patreon.com/ComeOnManPod. Link is in the description. And here's the show.
You're listening to the premier podcast for men who want to not only be better with women, but want to be better men in general. This is the Come On Man podcast. And here's your host, Paul Bauer.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another week of Come On Man. If you haven't done so already, please like, fave, subscribe, hit those notifications. If you are listening on your favorite audio platform of choice, please give us a 5-star review and actually take a moment to write out why you like the show. It helps more than you know, helps boost us in the algorithm on places like iTunes and Spotify. Also, comment below if you're watching on YouTube. Just, the like button and the comment, that helps out so much. Last week, I asked you guys to comment American Dragon because of, my man. But why don't we talk about the NWA championship belt there, 10 pounds of gold. So why don't you comment in the comments right now, 10 pounds of gold, and then I'll know that you're actually paying attention. Again, Dr. Pepper and cream soda, 0 sugar, right? Paul, are you getting paid by them? Maybe. So just really like it. If you're trying to lose weight, zero sugar sodas, they're 0 carbs, 0 calories. I personally recommend them. Like I know how to lose weight. You can tell, like if you look at my episodes from like a couple months ago, I've lost about 25 pounds since the beginning of the year because I know what I'm doing, and this helps. This stuff helps. All right. So joining me this week is probably one of the biggest guests I've ever had. His name is Elliott Hulse, and he's got a couple of YouTube channels with over 2 million followers on it. He's got a huge following on TikTok, huge following on Instagram, basically huge following everywhere he goes. And, but the thing is, he's not like one of my usual guests, right? Because I talk about red pill a lot. Y'all know my stance on marriage. I'm not a big fan of it, but I also realize that it's my way is not everybody's way, right? There's some guys out there that are very traditionally minded. They are looking to have a wife. They are looking to have that traditional type family unit. And I respect that. Okay. I would only say that do the best possible job vetting your wife. Don't rush into marriage and look for ways to protect your assets. But I think Elliott and also my good pal Benny joined us today, and those two guys are going to help you if that's you. If you are that traditional guy looking for that white picket fence, you believe in your heart of hearts that is your purpose, that's what you want in life, you want children, you want to have that traditional family, then by God, these guys are going to help you do it. And I will bring you that conversation right after this. I get dudes that hit me up by a DM on social media, asking for advice on dating, relationships, texting, divorce, you name it. I also get guys that want me to do live sessions more. Then there are guys that want to tell me their story and have a one-on-one conversation. Guys, I hear you. And now you have some options. Here's the thing though. I'm a busy guy. And on top of that, I hate giving men advice and have it go in one ear and out the other. The only way to solve for that is to make sure that you have some skin in the game. In order to help you guys out that really want it, I've decided to sign up for Patreon. If you visit patreon.com/ComeOnManPod, you can join one of 3 tiers. The first tier gives you access to my exclusive Discord community, where I'm trying to build a support system of like-minded guys, where we can all compare notes and give advice to each other. With that, you also get advice directly from me, and I'll answer your questions as I have time. In the second tier, you get to join a group Zoom call with me. Here, you and 9 other dudes can chat live with me over Zoom. It's way better than a live stream and will be way more personable because you actually get to talk with me, not just write questions in a chat like some peasant. Finally, for guys who really want help, you can have live one-on-one sessions with me. Both the second and third tiers have limited space, so sign up now because those seats will fill up quickly. Each tier gives you better bonuses as well, like my personal behind-the-scenes dating and relationship updates, as well as ad-free interviews published before the general public gets to see them. Support the show and let me help you. Join my Patreon today at patreon.com/comeonmanpod. That's patreon.com/comeonmanpod. All right, joining me this week are a couple of really great dudes. We have my good friend and dating coach that literally walks on water, Benny Lichtenwalner, as well as a man who has a tremendous following on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, you name it. His name is Elliott Hulse, and they are joining me today to talk about Elliott's new Get the Girl for Life program. What's going on, gentlemen?
Hey, what's going on, man?
All is well, fellas. Pleasure to be here with you. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, it's actually a real honor. You have a huge following, man. I didn't even realize that. Benny said that he was going to be working with you, and I saw the video for this program. I was like, holy crap. How long have you been doing this?
I started out on YouTube in 2007, probably just a few months after YouTube started. And I was a strength coach. I was struggling as a personal trainer, trying to train people in the parks, doing boot camps in my local city. And so I started making YouTube videos in order to help the guys in my programs help me promote the program by filming the workouts and then asking them to share it. And, you know, by and by, the popularity of the videos grew, and here we are now.
Yeah. So you weren't doing this sort of thing full time back then, but now it's just sort of turned into a career, huh?
Yeah, that's right. I was a strength coach. I was a strongman. I owned a little gym called Strength Camp, a little warehouse gym in South St. Pete. And the YouTube thing, I got to say that I was at the right place at the right time in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. I don't think I would have been as popular as quickly had I started today. I sort of just like rose with YouTube. And so being an OG early on, having a unique perspective on fitness and life allowed me to just corner the marketplace very early.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. Because I'm struggling now on YouTube.
So am I.
Yeah,
I have all those subscribers, but I get like maybe 1% of the views.
Yeah, it's hard right now. That's why I really like TikTok. I think that's sort of like the new wave, for now anyway. Yeah. It's starting to, my views are starting to go down on there now though. So, because they're starting to get in with the money. Speaking of money, let's talk about your Get the Girl for Life program. Can you give us a brief description about what your vision is for that?
So I mentored a young man, and so they come to me with a broad perspective of issues associated with becoming stronger men in their lives. That's what I do. I make men strong. I'm a strength coach, so I show them how to get physically strong. I've helped men with entrepreneurship. And most recently, through my King Transformation program, I've found that there is an area in which the men are not being well served outside in the world that I happen to be uniquely positioned to help them with, even though I haven't up until this point, and that is with marriage and family. And so we are living in a time where the greatest attack is upon the family and upon marriage. And it's been ongoing. It's been a slow cook since the 1960s, late 1950s, with the rise of feminism and Marxism in our culture, and the denigration of the father, and the turning away from family values, and the promiscuity, hookup culture, and the effeminacy of men. We've really gotten to a point where, that old saying, hard times create strong men. Well, I think we're at that pivotal point right now where we've become just so degenerate, and I'm pointing specifically at the millennial generation, that I think it's peaked. And I'm watching as Gen Z, being the last gen, right? The generation where that hard times create strong men pendulum then starts to swing again, or that cycle starts to come around again, they're craving tradition. They're craving a return to the roots of Western civilization, which is Christendom. And so I'm watching these young men return to the church, return to tradition, return to wanting marriage and family. And so I, being a child of a happy, healthy home where my parents were together throughout my entire life and their parents were together, and my wife and I have been together for 20 years, my aim here now is to blend this masculine awakening in terms of intersexual dynamics, what many of us call the red pill, with traditional family values. So you have two ends of the spectrum, right? You've got the red pill where there's an awareness about female nature and intersexual dynamics, but to a degenerate end. It's, well, let's just be promiscuous. Let's just hook up. Let's make the best of female nature by getting ours, right? And so it's a little nihilistic. And then you have the other end of the spectrum where, many of the traditionalists or many of the Christians, they are in it for the right reasons, marriage and family, which is generate as opposed to degenerate, but all from a blue-pilled mindset. And so they're failing as well. And so sort of bringing the two together, you guys mentioned purple pill before, but really, really trying to drive home this blend between intersexual dynamics and understanding what actually attracts a woman, and as opposed to what the world has told us, and to the generative end of marriage, family, tradition, and traditional gender roles.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so watching your initial announcement video about this, you were talking about this program's really designed for traditional men. We're talking about like Christian men, breadwinners, their wives stay at home with the kids, that sort of thing.
Traditional minded.
So
I think the generation that's coming up right behind the millennials, I think Generation Z, although they're still very young right now, they are preparing the soil to be the generation that turns it around. So it's interesting. I've got quite a few young men who are not ready for marriage yet, but are preparing themselves by understanding what's required so that, in my opinion, they could do what is most resourceful, which is get married young.
Oh, you actually recommend getting married young?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. What do you think the benefit is of that?
Well, there's a number of benefits. Number one of which is you avoid the promiscuity trap, where both women and men become hardened in their hearts towards love because of hooking up. Now, they've said that, to the degree that a woman is having sex with men, her ability to pair bond diminishes. But that's also the case with men, as I'm watching so I have this one guy, really good looking guy. He can have sex with any woman that he wants. He just joined the program. And he's struggling because he doesn't know how to be with a wife-worthy woman because he's so used to hooking up with sluts. And so by marrying early, you avoid the degrading effect of how does E. Michael Jones call it? He says, sterile transient sex, which does nothing but entertain us in the moment, but destroy us in the long run. And so that's one reason. Another reason is I found, and many likely have found, that when you get together early and a young woman gives her best years to a man, her most fertile years, her most attractive years, her early 20s, and when a man is still on his way up, the sort of inverse happens as they reach their late 20s and 30s, where she now is in a safe relationship to hit the wall, essentially, after her fertile years, and perhaps at that point have had many children. I had 4 children by the time I was 29, my wife and I. And the man now who is reaching his peak. Now he's establishing himself as in his career or in his business. And, that's when the man's best years are there. He now then can return the favor and they can grow a family together in an even trade, as opposed to waiting later when a woman is essentially past her prime years. So she's 28, 29, 30 years old. Not to say that she's used up, but has been riding the carousel for a while. She's not the hot chick she once was. And then expecting a guy who's reaching his peak to want to turn around all of a sudden, and this girl who may have not been paying attention to him when he was younger, to just take him in. And then they whine that there are no good men.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Okay. Now, red pill guys, you mentioned it in your video too. You said there's red pill guys who think there are zero wife worthy women out there. And I consider myself red pill, but you're right. There's a lot of dudes that are under the red pill label that are just super negative when it comes to women. They just have just the worst viewpoint in the world. I'm not one of those guys. What do you say to guys like that?
I don't have much to say, except I have a question. How's that working out for you? Mm-hmm. And so in the short term, it seems like you might be winning. Well, I'm sleeping with a new girl every night. But at some point, that grows old. And like I say, I have friends who have bedded perhaps thousands of women that at a certain point, they realize the futility of my efforts and the derogatory effects that now lead me to a place where I don't even know how to discern whether or not a woman is worthy of long-term relationship or marriage.
Got it. Yeah, that I just finished reading The Game by Neil Strauss, and that's pretty much the gist that I got from that book. Was these guys were really great at picking up women. They had no idea how to have an actual relationship with a woman, and a lot of those guys ended up burning out because because their life was empty.
The sequel, the truth. So basically, he goes a stretch further, right? So he's like, basically, what happens is he tries out every iteration of a relationship. Like he tries to call in all his girlfriends and live in his harem. And he's like, well, that's too much drama. That only lasted for a month. So I'm going to tack myself onto two existing lesbians. Okay. So he tries that. And he just almost like a swingers resort where it's all these existing couples live together. And that he literally tries everything to include sex therapy and counseling, all this stuff. And basically his conclusion is at the end of the day that monogamy, the whole time, what he's the one safe haven he's thinking about was his initial girlfriend. I think he ended up marrying her. I've heard since then, I don't know if they're still together, but he went to the endeavor of writing the whole book about this, roller coaster journey. He gravitates back to monogamy at the end of the day. So it's really interesting.
That is fascinating. Speaking of pickup though, Benny, one of the weeks that are in this program, it's an 8-week program, but Elliott's got listed on there using social media to actually introduce yourself to women. And I was like, that's got to be where Benny fits into this. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I heard about Benny from one of my strength camp members about 2 years ago. And he said that, I met this guy who's really helping me get out of my shell to meet women, but in a unique way. And that was through using the chats on Facebook and video. Mm-hmm. I was like, well, that's unique. It's much different than, well, first of all, dating apps. And second of all, I think it was right during the pandemic. So a lot of guys weren't able to get out and, maybe do the day game stuff or meet girls out in the streets. So when I thought about putting this program together, I realized that, this is the world that we live in right now. And so rather than just bringing somebody on board that can teach you, how to approach, select, qualify, and deal with women in real life, someone that can use the technology that we're all become accustomed to in order to help my guys out. And so that's how I found and brought Benny on.
Okay. Yeah. Benny's technique, especially with the video chats, video opening, and also like audio, using audio, has been a game changer for me and like pretty much everybody in the 3% man group where we met each other. There's so many guys that even on some of the dating apps now, they have a video chat feature or an audio chat feature. And so all the guys are taking advantage of it because no dudes out there are doing that. They're all just sending lame text messages. But when you're approaching a woman virtually over social media or whatever with a video, it's bold. It's a bold statement. And you can use all your faculties to, showcase who you are. And the best thing I love about it is you can edit it before you send it. So it can be perfect every time. Benny, so you talked about how you heard about Benny, but how did you guys get in touch though? That's what I want to know.
The same person.
Same guy. Okay.
Yeah. You know him. I don't know if we're supposed to be name dropping, but you also know, cause he's also a 3% manner. So.
Oh, okay. You drop his first name.
We'll drop his internet alias name is J. Edward Eastbridge.
Oh,
fancy,
yeah. Rat Race Rugged. Yeah. He's been on the podcast. So that's good.
Okay. Awesome.
Right?
Okay. Yeah.
He's one of my very first. So when I started out with my gym out in the park, I was doing boot camps in 2008. I think I met him. He was like one of my very first clients for strength camp as a strength coach. And so he's been around for a long time, and to have gotten a good word about somebody from him came highly. And it was like that. It's a good recommendation.
Yeah. He is a good dude. He was going to come out to your event last year, right, Benny?
Yeah, he came out to the first one that I put on. So we did like a winter. This is what we were talking about on the call before Elliott jumped on, before we hit record. Mm-hmm. So I did this winter retreat at my family cabin up in the mountain, like middle of nowhere, Georgia. My wife's 9 months pregnant, like helping me, like she's ready to go almost like in the next week or two. She's helping me. She's cooking all the food for everybody. She's helping me set up the jiu-jitsu mats. We were just talking about how we did axe throwing out here. This is in the middle of the woods. And this is what Jim came out to. And we built like an axe throwing board. And the only way that we could get, like, it was this thick wood, right? Because you're throwing axes at it. So we hoist it up on this tree. And my 9 months pregnant wife is like helping me pull this like probably 150, maybe even like 200-pound piece of wood, like up against this tree. And we had to take ratchet straps to like get it up. So that way the axe throwing board is like at eye level. So we're doing all this craziness out in the middle of the woods. We did jujitsu outside in the woods, and we did some kayaking, a lot of cool stuff. And he came out to that. It was a really good time.
Yeah, he was going to go out to the one that I went out to though, out at the lake, but he couldn't make it for whatever reason.
Yeah,
which is unfortunate. Let me ask you this, Benny. This is a good question for you, I think. So I understand the premise on your Facebook game method. But I know for this particular program, like we're targeting traditional women, like maybe even, religious, like Christian women. How do you narrow that down? Well,
I can give you my piece on it. I'm sure Elliott will have things to say too, but my thought is this: it's like, it's up to the individual, because first of all, everything starts in the brain. So you think reticular activation system, the thing that filters through reality to show us what's relevant in the world. Well, the mechanism is the same. Guy's going to be video messaging chicks over social media, right? That's there's nothing fancy about it. That's that. But when you start prompting men to think about who it is that they want to talk to, and you start getting intentional about it, you're writing things down, and you're visualizing what this woman, what value she has, and all these things, right? This is what your brain starts, so we always use, like other people have said this too, this isn't unique to me, but like you buy a new car, now all of a sudden you see that same car everywhere, right? Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. So us buying the car is writing down the values on a sheet of paper. Now we start teaching these guys how to use the Facebook algorithm, how to use like Instagram to connect with women. And yes, a primary driver is going to be physical attraction, right? That's going to be because we're using visuals to to go through some of this stuff. If a guy sees a visual on a girl that he's like, no, that girl, like, no, like maybe, like the guy might decide to say that if she's got tattoos and a bunch of piercing, okay, that's not a traditional woman.
I'm not a fan of septum piercings. That's a preference.
Right? So whatever it is,
yeah.
And they write all this stuff down and they get to work, right? So the method's the same across the board, and so is attraction. Whether it's a traditional woman or not, attraction is going to be the same across the board. There's going to be things that we steer away from, right? We don't want to signal that we're not like a traditionally minded guy. We don't want to signal that that we're not going to be a good fit for that woman. But that's the men that we're dealing with here in this group. Is like these are family minded guys. So as they're putting themselves out there into the universe, right? So we talk about like women are like beacons of beauty. They're like lighthouses, like shining the radiance out, right? And we're the boats, like we get drunk. Well, supposed to stay away from the lighthouse, but in this case, we just crash into it, right? And so that's them. But like for us, we have to go out and elbow grease our way to figure out, what our options are, right? So as these men put who they are out into the universe, ideally through video, because the girl can make a better assessment that way. Now all of a sudden they're going to start to get responses from the type of women that are attracted to that. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. Elliott, do you want to speak on that at all?
I would have to agree. It sounds like that makes perfect sense to me. I would also add that, I would imagine it's a numbers game, and it's difficult to really gauge a woman's character right away. So rather than being hyper selective right away, it's a matter of like kind of spread it out and see what you get, and you might be surprised.
100%.
Got it. That makes sense. And you're not going to really get to know her unless you're in person anyway, which sort of brings me to the next topic. So week 5 is deep vetting and deliberate dating. Elliott, what are some ways you recommend guys to vet women properly to determine if she's a long-term relationship candidate or even, wife material?
Well, there are a few things that you can look for, rather than asking questions. Now, these aren't going to give you the entire story, but they're indicators. So, for example, what kind of relationship does she have with the men in her life as it is? So, and that means men that are above her, right? How is she in regard to respect for her father, right? And of course, we live in a world that is against the father, and many fathers have fallen away. So that comes into play also. But, my wife, for example, we were very young. Her father wasn't the greatest guy, but she respected him either way. She did what he asked him to do, what he asked her to do. She came home when he asked her to come home. And even though he wasn't like a strong man and a strong father, she still respected him. But then also, right? So how does she deal with a man that's above her, that has authority over her? Because if you're going to be into a traditional relationship, the understanding is that the man is the head of the relationship. The understanding is that there is a hierarchical structure, just like there is in every organization. And the home is a tiny organization. And so that there's a CEO and then there's a COO. And so there's an order. Now we live in a world where everything has become flat and bland. So they think that egalitarianism actually works, but it doesn't. And that's why relationships aren't. So establishing that she knows how to deal with a man that's above her. And then it's very important to see how she relates to, say, for example, a younger brother or a man that she is over. Does she treat him with disdain, or does she treat him in a dignified way, right? So how does she treat men that are above her? How does she treat men that are below her? And so that's one of the many ways that we can decide whether or not a woman is going to be worth our time in courtship and relationship.
Yeah, those are huge. Those are absolutely huge. Those are things I've had to learn over the last few years, is to pay attention to specifically that father relationship. Like, is the father even around? If the father's not around, that's questionable material. Benny, do you have any ideas on how to properly vet?
Yes, I do. And it's a whole different set of criteria. This is one of the things I'm excited about working with Elliott for, because number one, I never even thought about what he just said. like everybody, a lot of people know the thing about look out for the father, right?
Mhm.
But I've never even so much as thought about before, how does she treat men that are in her care, the younger brother, maybe, like a peer or like somebody she's mentoring, right? Like, what does that look like? That's really interesting because that's going to inform you, well, what kind of mother is she going to be, right? Or how is she going to nurture you as a husband? So that's really cool. But what I do, so what I've been doing over the last few years with my guys is coaching them on how to identify their personal values, right? Because so we have sort of like inherited values, which most are good, right? Like from society gives bad values too, but like if you come from a good family, maybe if you're religious, you can inherit a lot of good values. So you have your inherited societal values, like the stuff your parents gave you, society, church, et cetera, and all this stuff. So if you ask a guy his values, a lot of times what you're going to hear is like loyalty, honor, commitment, courage, like all this kind of thing, like being a Marine, like, those are a couple of those are Marine Corps values, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these are the kind of things that men say, and it's push button. Like you ask any guy, he's like, yeah, that stuff, right? And every man is going to say that kind of stuff. But how many men could you be like, well, what are your personal values? Like, what are those, right? And I read a book a long time ago. It's called The Values Factor by Dr. John DeMartini. What he does is, this is really cool. It's like, this is not even a belief-based book. It's like very objective. Basically what he does is he say, hey, take an inventory of your life. Like go look at what you spend money on. What room in your house is the most organized in your house? Like look around. Like what are the things that inform you, the things that you care about? Chances are like maybe your garage is like the cleanest, or maybe it's your desk, like, or like somewhere in the house is like the most organized. You probably spend money on particular kind of things. So you start to learn what your personal values are. And if you make a partner choice independent, like if you're only going off of the inherited values, chances are that you're going to feel a little bit heavy on the obligation side. And we have enough obligation and duty as men in general anyway. And you're going to get less of the like refreshment out of it too. So my goal is to like inject that by prompting guys to think about like what their personal values are, not to throw out everything they've inherited, but really just to add another layer onto it. It's like, hey, make sure if you're going to spend the rest of your life with somebody, like you're single, this is your exact window to get exactly what you want. It's like, don't make the wrong choice. Like get what you want, you don't have to prioritize the fact that like my wife, she does, she's a grappler too. I don't have to say, oh, well, I want a grappler over somebody that can nurture my kids. I can have both, So that's kind of the way I think about it, how to vet.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. I've never even thought about that. I've never sat down and thought about what are my personal values. It's always just, a lot of the stuff is what I've, was raised with. But yeah.
And it goes back to the reticular activation system, because if you write it down, you mention it, then the brain finds it,
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. Elliott, week 6 is escalating like an alpha male. What does that look like to you?
So one of the biggest pitfalls that young men are having in these relationships is that they have no vision for it. And so we're getting into these relationships for entertainment, for let's see what happens. You don't go into business without a vision for where you're going. You don't go to university without a vision for what your degree is going to be and what it's for. You pretty much don't do anything as a man without having an end in sight. In fact, that's what excites us more than anything. But when the end is so short-sighted that it's about when am I going to blow my load next in a plastic bag while boning this girl, then you get into a loop of nothing and nowhere. You really aren't getting anywhere. And so it becomes like almost like a drug addict, where it's like a drug addict's goal is the next hit. It's not going anywhere. It's when am I going to get the next hit? When am I going to get the next hit? When am I going to get the next hit? And so that's what these relationships end up being. They're just cycles of addiction, as opposed to taking the upper hand and saying, see, a lot of guys wait for the woman to say, where is this going?
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. Yeah.
That's not the way it should be. We should be saying, okay, this is where it's going. Why do we have to wait for a woman to ask us what our vision for the relationship is? It's because we show up very weak and visionless. But as a man, you should know very clearly what your intention is before you even approach a woman. And as you're engaging, making it very clear that I have a vision for what this may be all about. Of course, we're in the courting stage, so you're being vetted. You're just like you wouldn't hire an employee, just like you wouldn't bring on a business partner, just like you wouldn't do business with anybody in any regard unless you got to know what they were like and then shared the vision and then had a unified vision. It's the same thing with leading a relationship. What are we doing? Why are we here? And where are we going? Otherwise, we're just wasting time.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I did want to ask you about that. So, Benny and I are Corey Wayne students, like we were telling you about off air. But that's one of the things that he recommends is waiting for a woman to bring it up, because a lot of times guys will scare women off if they bring it up like too soon. And I think that's really what he's getting at. But you believe that men should be the ones that take the lead in that and say, hey, yeah, this is what I'm envisioning for our relationship, So
one of the things I really like about the generic red pill community is this idea of plate spinning. This idea of plate spinning. A man should always be plate spinning. And so if you know what my intention is for spinning these plates, and you happen to be one of those plates right now, you understand that you're on the stick right now. So I'm spinning you right now, and you may or may not stay. You may fall. And so I think it's scary for a woman when she thinks that she's your only option as a woman. So if a woman knows you have many options, you can share what my intention is with these particular options I'm vetting for what my goal is. Yeah. And therefore she knows she's in a job interview. As opposed to you showing up and saying, she's the only one. She knows she's the only one. And then you come straight out and saying, well, I want to marry you, or this is going to be a road towards marriage. That's different than saying I am in the market. Just like, if you're going to look for a car, I am in the market for a particular kind of car, and I'm shopping, but it's very clear that I'm going to buy a car here pretty soon.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Cause then it's more like you're demonstrating non-neediness, which Benny's a big fan of. And I mean, everybody should be a big fan of that, honestly. Right? let's get real here. But it also sort of puts them on notice, and it sort of drives up that competition anxiety. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, 100%. And that's one of those things that needs to be integrated with most of the blue pill ideology that most men get married under. You have to understand, look, I'm married for 20 years and I'm still running dread game on my wife. She knows I'm a high value man, and there are women out there that would love to have me. She's not afraid that I'm going to leave. She's aware of my commitment to our family, but she also knows she can't let herself go. Yeah, that's a really good point. There is a subset. We talk about red pill, purple pill, and stuff like that. There's a subset of guys in the red pill community that I follow, and they're very relationship oriented, and so that's where they really preach the dread game stuff. When you have that monogamous type LTR relationship, and how important that is, and not there's some guys out there that are trying to teach dread game like almost like it's a trick or a tactic, but that's a terrible way of doing it. The best way of doing it is, you stay fit, right. you work on yourself, you show her through your own actions and your just mental vision of your own life and leveling up that you're a high value man. And she knows just by your actions that, hey, I need to keep my game strong too, or else this guy's going to walk out. So yeah, that's really good stuff. Let's go to, so the last 2 weeks basically are, I think where most men struggle
in marriage and long-term relationships. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because that's on keeping that, once you found your plate, your fine china, how to keep that relationship going long term? Because I think most guys struggle with that.
Well, it begins with all the things that get us into the relationship as is. So is that polarity there, and has it been established early in the relationship, and is it maintained, right? Mm-hmm. Because a lot of times there's a switch in polarity at some point in a relationship, and it often happens when the man becomes addicted to the woman's sex. The minute she recognizes that she is your only option for sex and that you need her for that, it's almost like this drug addict and drug dealer sort of relationship. So the polarity shifts, and all of a sudden she becomes the one in charge with the relationship. That's one of the many different ways. Of course, men let themselves go. They get lazy because just like any drug addict, as long as you're getting your hit, you don't need to do anything but lay on the couch. So it's a matter of maintaining your polarity, maintaining polarity from the beginning. So we're working backwards and coming up to this. Then is like we spoke about earlier. It's a matter of leading the relationship. Not just, there's a lot of guys that want to have traditional relationships. They want, because a man knows and a woman knows innately that a man is in charge. He's the leader. We've always been, and we should act like it. But that needs to be established, and it needs to be clear. It can't be one of these assumed things. You got to talk about this. Those are uncomfortable conversations. But if you don't establish this early on, that's like going into business with somebody and not being clear about our roles. Mm-hmm. I am the CEO. That's very clear. I'm the founder and you're my assistant, right? I am the husband and you are the wife. What does that mean? Of course, today, nobody knows what that means. They don't even know what a woman is. But look to, and this is why I think traditional gender roles or biblical gender roles make it so simple and easy for us, because we've been doing this for thousands of years. It's only been for the past 100 years that we sort of kind of forgot what a man does in a relationship and what a woman does in a relationship. And it's only been since the past 100 years that there's some sort of shame for a man to take that leadership role. Because, we live in a world where anything that even is wafts of authority is seen as tyranny, which is not true. In fact, the most powerful authority is that of a benevolent leader. And that's what you are when you take on this role as a husband and a leader in the relationship. So those things have to be established. And then the long-term hot monogamous relationship for life is just keeping that going. You never stop. You never stop maintaining that polarity, letting your wife know that you're a sexual man by being manly with her, being aggressive with her, being sexual with her, as opposed to a lot of guys, they start laying back and expecting sex, right? Like, oh, it's that time, I'm having sex, as opposed to pursuing her like you did when you were younger, right? Or like when you first started the relationship. So pursuing her, letting her, I know this almost sounds like it's pro-female, but it's not. It's not pro-woman. It's pro-relationship. It's a pro making it work. It's a pro maintaining what got you attracted to begin with, but you should always still be pursuing or wanting her. Let me put it that way: wanting her and letting her know that you want her, just like you did in the beginning. I don't mean want like a baby with his baba and like a big sissy wanting. I'm talking about like I'm gonna take you right now, throw you down on the bed, and drag you around and do what I want, because she wants that. Mm-hmm. Just because you've been together for 20, 30, 40 years doesn't mean that she still doesn't get turned on by a man being a man with her, being aggressive with her. Yeah. So there's establishing that, and then that's just the way you are with her, and the way you are with her is always a reflection of the way you are in the world. Are you getting lazy in your business? Like I caught myself a few years ago getting lazy in my business. And as I started getting lazy in my business and lazy out in the way I establish myself or give myself to the world, it was reflecting itself in my relationship. And so if your wife doesn't see you, they say women always want to know, what have you done for me lately? Right. But it's not even what you've done for me lately. It's just that she's vigilant. Women are vigilant. They never stop, just like you should never stop keeping an eye on where she is and where she's going. Women, because they have more at stake, they're more vigilant than we are. We can kind of let our women slide and stuff, and we guys will not notice all kinds of stuff. Mm-hmm. Women, they notice everything. And the minute you gaining a little bit of weight, you making a little bit less money, you sleeping a little bit later, you're not taking things as seriously, you're going back on your word, you said you're going to do something, but you didn't. All those little things just rack up in the back of her head, and her sense of respect for you then starts to lessen. And then again, the polarity switches. So these are just a few little things.
Yeah. Those are some of the.
Let me interject something too, because one thing I was thinking with all that, which is that the skills that you learn to approach women, like texting, learning how to text, the way that I text with my wife, it's never stopped from the day that we met till now. She leaves, like she texts me something, like my funny brain like reaches deep and I pull something out and I say something ridiculous to her, make her laugh, and it's like it's injecting energy. So what you learn with texting as well is another life skill that you can use with your wife too, just to keep things, keep everybody on their toes.
Yeah. These are the biggest things that I had to learn over the last several years, getting into this stuff. A lot of us have gotten into this stuff because, we've had relationships that have failed for whatever reason. And the smart ones, I include myself in that. Thank you. Is I try to figure out what I did wrong. I'm not trying to put the blame on these women. Like, what did I do wrong? How am I screwing up here? And that was one of the biggest things I realized is that, and I hear a lot of these, like these negative red pill guys complain about, oh, women do this bait and switch. They'll get you hooked, they'll get you married, and then they get fat. And it's like, dudes do that so much more, I think, and I was one of those. I was one of those guys. Like, well, I don't have to try anymore. I already got you, like this. And then my parents, like, they're still together, but they basically hate each other, and like, they're not in love. My dad's like, the whipping boy and stuff in the relationship and stuff. So that's how I was raised. And that's how I saw relationships. And I was just like, well, that's just how it is. Men never win, and happy wife, happy life. And none of that works. And what I did finally realize is that you have to do what you did from the beginning throughout the whole relationship. And so, like Benny says that he does with his wife, like I do the same thing with my girlfriend. I call her Nurse Chick on the show, but I do text game with her. I look at her text bubbles. I make sure that I'm, one level below it. I still do all that kind of stuff. I send her occasionally a video message and stuff, try to make her laugh, and it fosters a good relationship. I'm still doing what I did when I first met her. So that's good stuff. Benny, do you want to add anything else to what men struggle with, do you think, in LTRs, or do you think we covered a lot of that?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I feel like we covered it. Yeah, we get complacent, and that's really the essence of it. I don't think I could add anything to that. I think that's really good.
Oh, okay. Well, then I have another question for you, Benny. So, sure. I think you mentioned this at your retreat last year, but you also just put out a video recently talking about how it was that through Elliott, you found your mentors in the dating world. Can you tell that story?
Yeah. This is the whole experience of connecting with Elliott's been kind of unreal for me. It's been like a personal treat because, number one, I was in a bad marriage when I found his stuff, and I didn't know that my marriage was like part of the problem. I was just like deeply unhappy in like 360 degrees. I wasn't making any choices for myself. I was like in school, running a business, like trying to fix stuff at home, and like it was just like stress all the way around. So I'm like Googling things like how to find confidence and all this stuff, even though I'd already been in a Marine at this point. Like I had all these reasons to be confident. I was an entrepreneur and stuff, but I'm like finding like early videos of Elliott stuff. So I'm following him because like I'm slowly repairing myself, throughout this process. And then he goes to some YouTube conference or something, which I don't even know what it was, but he had Owen Cook on. So Tyler from Real Social Dynamics, he had Owen Cook on it. And I heard him talk and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this guy is nuancing out all these problems that I had. So like being depressed in my youth and having massive anxiety, not being able to socialize with other people, like never being able to attract the kind of women that I want to, blah, 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 like all these things. And he's like describing in detail, like how social dynamics work and all these things. I'm like, oh my gosh, like this guy has all the answers. So I just, consume like, hundreds of hours of like, Owen content, and I start to fix myself over the years, and then of course, later finding Corey and all this stuff and going out to the dating world after my divorce and applying everything. But it's cool because I'm here like as a dating coach through Elliott's outreach on YouTube, which is really, really cool. So.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. Elliott, I saw on one of your videos that you've been married for 20 years. You also mentioned that. I even caught part of your interview with Anthony Johnson that included your wife. How have the principles that you're going to teach helped you in your marriage specifically?
Well, I didn't know I was doing them. It's almost like I had to reverse engineer myself. And I came to a lot of conclusions, one of which is I'm my father's son. And so it was a lot of mirroring of my parents' relationship. One of the amazing things about our relationship, and this is why I know I'm blessed and I can't take credit for anything, this has just been the grace of God, is that my father is the way he is. My dad is the most alpha male man on the face of the earth that I know. And so I happen to be his son. And so I'm grateful that I have retained some of those traits. I'm not as alpha as he is, because he grew up in the jungle. I grew up in Long Island, New York. So much different environment. But my wife, because we were just teenagers when we started dating. And so she started coming around my house, and she didn't come from a good family. Like I said, her father was a weak man and her mother is not a good woman. Wasn't very helpful around the house and didn't, take good care of her husband and her children. But my parents were. And so Colleen, she saw what my family had as a young lady, and she knew that's what she wanted. And so she essentially became mentored by my mother very early on. So here we have, almost like, I don't want to say that my parents were our blueprint, but in a lot of ways they are. And so we were able to adopt subconsciously, and that's why I'm saying I had to reverse engineer it, subconsciously, just by osmosis. You become what you live. We began to carry on the very traits that my parents exhibit that allow their relationship to be so amazing. I'll give you one example. I spoke about myself and some things that I do, a lot of which I learned from my dad. They're hilarious. I can tell you some funny stories, especially from my dad. But my mom, for example, one day Colleen was at my house when I was a kid, we were in high school, and she would help my mom with laundry. And so my mom would fold her laundry, she put it in a basket, and she would leave it at the end of the staircase to go up the stairs. And it was kind of heavy, so she would leave it there. And so that day, Colleen says, Ms. Hulse, would you like me to carry the basket upstairs? And so my mom says, no. You leave that basket right where it is for my husband to carry it up, because he needs to know that I need his help. And at the time, I'm sure Colleen it didn't register for her then. And it wasn't until I was much older that I realized the wisdom in that. Because a man, one of the greatest ways for a woman to keep a man attracted to her is for him to have a sense that she needs him, that he is her hero. Mm-hmm. Every man wants to be a hero to his family. And so even in the small things, if my mother played, "Oh, I'm a little helpless, can you help me?" That gave even though he did a lot of other things as well, but it was these small things that gave him a sense of dignity and purpose, meaning for being in the family, even if it's just carrying the basket up the stairs.
That is such a rare quality to find nowadays. I think that's what a lot of guys complain about. And I always tell these guys too, you get what you focus on in life. If you focus on these trash women, that's all you're ever going to see. But there's really good women out there if you keep your eyes open. And my girlfriend's like that. I don't know if she's ever thought about it that way. Like, oh, I need to just leave this here so that my man can do this. But she will bend over backwards to, make sure I'm comfortable, just to show how much she appreciates me and stuff like that. Like those women exist, Mm-hmm. But that's awesome. Yeah. Your mom's playing the game. I like it.
Right. Yeah, it's tough because, the culture tells women, and this is crazy because the fathers, I have 3 daughters. And so fathers pump this into their daughters' brains that they need to be strong. They need to be independent. They don't need no man. And so when women take that on and they believe that that's what they should do and they should be, then men, this is going to sound, I don't know how, they want to pick us apart as, pro-masculine men here, but I don't care because truth is truth. If women behave that way, and if women establish themselves that way, then they take away from men one of the very things that gives us a sense of purpose in life. If you don't need us, then we're in essence useless. Mm-hmm. If women don't need us, then why live? And that's what the world is trying to do. They're trying to make it so that, women can have babies without men. They want to do anything that they can, this culture, mm-hmm. to make it such that men are not needed. That's why, they're building all these robots and everything. They literally want to get rid of men. There's this guy named Steve Brule. You should check him out. I don't know if he's still on YouTube. He might have got kicked off, but he spoke at the 21 convention a couple of years ago, and he gave one of the greatest talks on the coming totalitarian takeover worldwide, which is communism. But he says that it's a gynocentric communist takeover, because it cannot unfold without the superior, without women being superior. The mm-hmm. only way communism in this way, this totalitarian takeover, can work is if women are in the superior position, because then they become the agents of the state. And so by giving women, all these fake rights, like their right to go work. It's like, wait a second, is that really a right? Is it really your right to become a taxpayer? Or is it actually your right to be at home because you give babies, mm-hmm. right? But it's a fake right. Oh, you have the right to work. So the government has skewed these as perverted our understanding of gender roles, gender identity. I mean, so much so that we got transgenderism now, but such that women, they don't know how, and men in many instances can't appreciate what a truly feminine woman is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, you see it everywhere. One thing I have noticed though, and I've had a few of them on the podcast, there are some women out there that are waking up to this. Like they were raised that way. They're raised under, the feminine or feminist, I should say, doctrine. And they're just miserable. They're on SSRIs and they don't know why. And then when they come off the SSRIs and stuff, and they sort of start waking up to the fact like, oh, wait a minute. I actually feel better when I'm in my natural feminine state. It's an interesting
Think about
time
the birth
to be
control
alive.
pills also, right? Mm-hmm. Like how many women have been on hormone chemicals since the time they were 14 years old? They don't even know themselves. Will Noland had a really good video up last week interviewing a woman who's a scientist about the effects of birth control pills on the psychology and intersexual dynamics. And so one of the things that we know is that when a woman is on birth control pills, she not only doesn't know herself because her body thinks she's perpetually pregnant, but the man that she thinks she's attracted to is being perceived by her through a filter of the exogenous hormones. So a lot of times these women will, this is one more reason why fornication is a bad idea. You're, having sterile sex with your girlfriend who you think loves you for the past, 5 years. And then finally you decide to get married because you want to have children. She comes off of the pill. And next thing you know, the polarity's gone and she can't stand you. Mm-hmm. It's because she never knew you because she was always masked by these hormones.
Yeah. I'm seeing that a lot. in quite a few places. It's actually refreshing seeing some of these women putting out content and talking about it. Man, and they get destroyed not by men, they get destroyed by women. The other women, like women are can be such haters to each other. It's kind of sad. Getting back to the principles and how it's helping marriage and stuff. Benny, I've actually met your wife. She's an angel straight from heaven, a hell of a grappler. How have the
She's only gotten better too, man. She's a killer. She won gold at her last competition, and nobody scored any points on her. So she just went through and cleared out the division. Like,
that's awesome.
that was nuts. Yeah,
that's awesome. So, how answer this, and we can wrap up here because we're almost at an hour. But how have the principles that you teach specifically helped you in your marriage? You already talked about the texting part, but
yeah. So I come from a traditional background, and I think where Elliott and our ideologies intersect really well. It's like I value the family above anything else, right? Like when I was out single doing my thing, my goal, I was always singular vision, right? My goal was always to find a wife, to find the person I was going to spend the rest of my life with. But also I wanted to investigate, the mechanics of attraction and how do I put all this stuff together and make this work and all this kind of thing. And so, so for me, so your question was like, how does the principles that I've learned, has it affect my marriage? Is that the question?
How's it helped your marriage?
Yeah. So I'm coming from a different value set per se of like, what are the mechanics of attraction? Like how do we have two people with shared value, which I guess is similar too, but like, how do we have two people with shared values come together and live this really like fun and fruitful life as well? Like still things that are traditionally minded, like raising children and giving them teaching and giving them tools that they can take out into the future, but also like enjoying our own life. So I picked a girl that for me wasn't going to, like judge me like really harshly. I picked a girl for me that was willing to always go on adventures. So she always, like, anytime we want to do something, like we just do it. We're like, okay, cool, let's go. Like if I want to play a video game or something like that, if I want to be a piece of shit for a night and eat some Cheetos, she'll do that with me. We train jujitsu together, 5 or 6 times a week, which I love. I love that. Right. So for me, it was really a matter of, it's kind of what we talked about earlier, identifying what my values are, finding a girl that fits me. Right. But also a woman that, because when I met her, when I first met her kids, one of the things I noticed was that she sings to her kids at night. I noticed this. And I'm like,
I never heard her sing when we were at the retreat.
Right? Well, you're not her kid, man.
It's only reserved for the kids. Okay.
Right? So I noticed that. I'm like, man, that's really cool. And different things like that. But I guess my point is that I'm always using what I know about attraction on her, but it's not in this manipulative way. It's like it's almost like a muscle memory kind of thing, right? So when we're texting, it's like ridiculous to be my wife over text. Like you're going to get a bunch of bullshit back to you. It's going to make you spit your milk out of your nose and stuff, right? And she's always expecting that kind of stuff. And she told me the other day, she's like, yeah, the first time I meet somebody new and they ask about you, the very first thing I tell them is that you're obnoxious. Right. So
that's a good sign.
Like what Corey Wayne says, treat him like a bratty little sister.
Yeah.
So that's what I do. I'm always playing with her, but I also, like, she'll be in the kitchen. I'll grab her hand randomly. I'll spin her around. Right. It's really one of the things that's really funny. Is like tickling is such a good tool. Right.
Uh-huh.
And the funny thing is, though, let this be a warning to viewers, is that if you date a grappler, it will be damn near impossible to tickle your girlfriend or your wife. Like you got to hand fight like you would with wrestle, just to like try to tickle her. You got to like,
she's blocking you. Yeah.
So it's fun for me. So the things that I teach, which are more like nose to the grindstone, like how do you actually get how do you connect with them and win them over from an attraction perspective? I'm using all that in my relationship because, again, it's like you said, if you're not doing everything you did in the beginning, it's going to decay. So that's what I see is a lot of fun, a lot of date planning, just like you do in the beginning, a lot of attraction over text, when we're both gone throughout the day, and really just like keeping it fun in person. Like, I can't tell you how, and this is the cool thing about my relationship specifically. Like, we always have lots of moments where like the greatest gift you can give your partner is for your presence, right? Your full attention. And this is actually, I'm going to throw a nugget in here too. So like, if you ever read David Data's work, he uses love and consciousness interchangeably. He like uses them as like a synonym. And when I thought about this, this is actually mind blowing, because when you think about it, when you love somebody, your eyes get big, right? Like you're open to them, you're taking it in. And that's the same thing you do with meditation, right? And so when you love your partner, it's like you're present with them. So I can't tell you how many times in my relationship where we have these moments where we just kind of like take each other in and do gratitude. And you think it would be like lame almost, like when you hear somebody like, it's almost like, get that like mushy stuff out of here. Like, that sounds like it would be cheesy, but you have to remember it's like counterbalanced with all the, attraction and the messing around and all this kind of stuff. Right. So that's another cool piece of it, which is learning, like when you get good at dating, you start to learn how to like active listen, like ask questions, like use your genuine curiosity. You do all these things and you learn how to be present with the girl, and you just take that into the marriage.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. I struggled with being present in my last like long-term relationships, because I was always just like in my own little world. My girls would be talking to me, and then I would say, what? Can you say that again? And they would get so mad at me because I wasn't listening. So I've had to, and I still struggle with it too, but I've gotten better. I actually try to listen to, what Nurse Chick says. Luckily, she doesn't talk very much, so it makes it a little bit easier. One thing I want to touch on is, you talked about muscle memory, and I get these guys in the comments on like my TikToks and stuff where they're like, I don't want to be fake. I want to be myself. And I'm like, yeah, be yourself if that's getting you the results that you want. But if
Right.
if you're not getting the results, you need to change something. And if you practice this new you, like you're learning attraction, you're learning how game works, you're learning what women respond to. If you do that enough, that does become you, So
Yeah.
Some of these guys don't understand that.
It's funny because I'm sure you didn't coin the phrase, but Elliott was the first person I heard say, be the best version of yourself.
Oh, is that you? I've heard that a million times. Is that you?
I would say be the strongest version of yourself.
Okay.
That was my hook when I first started on YouTube. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I didn't interpret that as like the lifting aspect of it, but like to me, the meaning kind of like what came across the same way. And
that's what it was. Point was. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like dual purpose.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's what it is, because when you start getting into personal development, this is why everybody avoids it, because it's ego death.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you literally have to kill off the person you are right now, and not to be inauthentic, but it's like the same essence of who you are, plus all like healing all the parts of you that are dysfunctional. So if I can't look anybody in the eye without turning red or looking away, or like everybody has a scowl, like if I'm looking at people and they're all scowling at me because I'm just leeching their energy instead of like raising the energy level, that's dysfunction. I could be myself and then just basically rot, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I ego death and focus on the disciplines that I need to, and then become the next better version of myself. And it takes effort,
It does. And oftentimes it takes a coach. I think we should wrap up here. We hit an hour. This conversation has been so great. Elliott, how can people find out more about your program, and where can people find you online?
Best thing to do is just follow me on YouTube, dude. So it's ELLIOTTHULSE. That's my Elliott Hulse YouTube channel. I also have a Strength Camp YouTube channel. Been uploading to there every once in a while. It's my fitness one, but that's Strength Camp on YouTube also. And so anything that you need to know that's going on in the world of Elliott is going to be found on those two channels.
Okay, great. Benny, where can people find you online?
Awesome. Right now, I just want to promote Elliott's program, because that's what I'm focusing. Like, obviously I still have my own coaching, but people can just find me on TikTok at the White Hitch. But right now, if somebody's interested in this program, yeah, just go follow Elliott on YouTube and click the Get the Girl videos.
Yep, more of those will be coming out. So that's why I sent you there.
Okay, perfect. I'll put links to these in the description. Gentlemen, thanks again for joining me. I really appreciate it.
You got it.
Appreciate
It was a
it, man.
pleasure. Thank you for having me, guys.
Anytime. Elliott, Benny, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me today. Benny, you've been on the show before, so you know that you're welcome back anytime. You know that, bro. Elliott, but you're welcome. You're welcome too, man. Excellent conversation. We might differ a little on, what we want when it comes to relationships, but I think like at the end of the day, I think we're sort of on the same page, right? Like I'm not one of those guys that wants to be a permanent plate spinner for the rest of my life. I'm right now currently in a happy monogamous relationship. I personally just don't like the idea of getting the state involved in my relationship, but man, there's a lot of guys out there that's what they want. And, more power to them, more power to them. And I think that your course, Elliott, is going to put them on the direction for success, right? Because people talk so much about how 50% of marriages end in divorce, but they rarely talk about how 50% of marriages succeed. You know what I mean? Personally, I don't like those odds, but that doesn't, I guess what I'm trying to say is it can happen. So if you're a traditionally minded guy, you want that white picket fence, don't give up. Just learn how to do it correctly. And I think Elliott's program can help you with that. All right. Other than that, guys, check out my Patreon, help support the show. I want to make this my full-time gig. I want to help men achieve whatever goals they want in life, right? Whether it's being permanent plate spinners, whether it's spinning plates until they find the right plate, whether it's marriage, I want to help you guys succeed with that. And Patreon's a way that you can help support me in that endeavor. And besides just supporting me, I give you a whole bunch of cool stuff. I'm trying to build a community of like-minded dudes, a community of guys with skin in the game that are heavily invested, that want to level up. And with that group environment of serious students, you guys will be able to level up just with that alone. And then on top of that, I have tiers for if you guys want to have group Zoom calls with me so that we can actually communicate, just like this over Zoom. And I also have options for one-on-one consulting. So, if you guys want to talk to me about, investing, getting ready for your retirement, because a lot of people have no clue how to even do that. And I happen to be really good at that sort of thing. You might not know that because I talk about dating and relationships so much, but I'm really good at that sort of thing. My day job, I make a shitload of money in my day job. I've been working remotely from home since 2013. So I know how to, get to that level of freedom in your life, that other people just don't know how to enjoy. So I can tell you about that, learn from me, learn from guys that are doing it. And then, if there are things that I don't quite know about, I also have a huge network of dudes that I know, people like Elliott, people like Benny. If I can't help you, I can refer you to someone that can. So check out my Patreon. Link is in the description. It's patreon.com/comeonmanpod. And on that note, we'll catch you guys next week on Monday.
This has been the Come On Man podcast. New full episodes served hot every Monday morning on your favorite podcast platform of choice. So subscribe now. Follow Paul on social media. The links are in the description. Now, go out and get it.